What is the difference with the 2020 recession versus the recession ahead? Well, we have all recently experienced a short recession at the beginning of 2020 due to COVID. COVID had caused supply chain issues, businesses to close, and people to lose their jobs. Cities were in lockdown for an extended period of time. It was quite a frantic time and definitely something for the history books. However, various nations' government took matters into their own hand, such as the Canadian government, who stepped in to help citizens with their COVID-19 economic response plan by providing benefits for individuals, wage subsidy, loans, and rent assistance for businesses. The Bank of Canada also kept their interest rates low so that people are able to afford loans and pay back the loans. There was essentially a flow of free cash entering into the economy to keep the economy going and limited the recession to 2 short months. Even though the unemployment rate was high in 2020 and the stock market dropped by 30 to 40% within months, inflation had been low through 2020, which allowed the central bank to keep interest rates low. Now, going into 2023, the inflation rate in most G20 countries are way above their targeted inflation range, and the central banks have been increasing their interest rates to combat inflation. As a result of the increasing interest rate, they are slowing down their economy. Federal governments may not be able to provide much assistance as their restraint is required to combat inflation. If the federal government were to provide stimulus, like providing additional benefits such as GST rebates, or business subsidies in high inflation environments, it will force central banks to increase interest rates to curb inflation, which basically means that the federal government's hands are tied at the moment. We have yet to see the job market being affected as the unemployment rate in both Canada and the US have not yet trended upwards. Despite the constant news surrounding the unemployment rate in the tech sectors, which were a result of the 2021 market highs that many tech companies saw. For example, at the end of 2021 or at the beginning of 2022, Apple was the first US company that reached a valuation of $3 trillion. But as of this year, they also saw a dip in their valuation to under $2 trillion. As people become more aware of the recession that seems to be inevitable, they are beginning to decrease their demand for such goods and services. So at this point in time, we just have to wait for the ball to drop. So what influences can affect the global market? Wars can affect the global market negatively. The Russian-Ukraine war is still ongoing, so we will continue to see the extent of impact that it will have on the economy. There's also the ongoing energy crisis in the Eurozone, with Russia having cut off their regular gas supplies as a result of political reasons. Even with the import of liquefied natural gas, the cost of it is more expensive than the regular pipeline gas. A high gas import bill is problematic for the European economy, especially the ones that have well-developed heavy industry. They're also the heavy gas users. There was a decrease in gas demand in Europe last year, but that was due to demand destruction resulting from shutdowns of factories and layoff, which is not good for the economy. Japan, the world's third largest economy and also the world's biggest creditor country. Back in November 2022, the inflation in Japan has reached a 40-year high. While other nations were increasing their interest rates, Japan had kept theirs low. This was pushing down the yen's value, putting more stress on the country's highly import-dependent economy. Then in November 2022, Japan had announced that they're going to adjust their bond and raise the ceiling of their 10-year bond yield from 0.25% to 0.5%. This announcement had not only resulted in a 3% increase in the yen, but also resulted in a drop in the global stock market. It shocked the global market with only a 0.25% increase. Now imagine what would happen to the global market. It shocked the global market with only a 0.25% increase. Now imagine what would happen to the global market if Japan had increased their benchmark rate to rates similar to the US Fed Reserve at 4.5% or even the European central banks to 2%. There is still the lasting effects of COVID, We are all still feeling the aftermath of 2020, and there are still variations of the COVID. So this can continue to be a problem for the economy. Many industry experts are predicting a mild recession lasting from a year to about a year and a half. There is still a light at the end of the tunnel, and recessions are part of the business cycle, and they're bound to happen. The key is to be prepared. If you have not seen my last video on how to prepare yourself for recession, you can click on the link. If you found this video to be helpful, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.